Hey there, I'm Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative, and I make a lot of Cricut scan and cut and silhouette tutorials and on various types of projects. And today I'm going to do something a little bit different because over Christmas I decided to gift myself an Epson Eco-Tank printer and switch it over to Sublimation ink to turn it into a sublimation printer, like a budget sublimation printer. So I'm starting this series, which is how to sublimate on cotton or dark fabrics, dark cotton fabrics, using 3 different substrates that you're going to be sublimating onto. So today we're going to be talking about glitter heat transfer vinyl. Super, super fun. So what are the things you're going to need for this? Well, you're going to need a design that you can print and cut on a sublimation printer, and the one I'm using today is free in my resource library. You can sign up for that below in the video description, and all of the supplies that I use will be in the video description as well. So you're going to need to have a way to upload that design and print it out using the print and cut settings on your Cricut. Now today I'm using the Cricut, but for the following 2 videos I will be using the scan and cut and then the silhouette to show you how to set up designs to do this kind of process in those programs as well. To heat the cotton shirt and the design, we're going to need obviously a 100% cotton dark colored t-shirt. I'm using a Gildan 100% cotton purple t-shirt. You're going to need a heat source. So I'm using my EasyPress 2. If you have a heat press, then that's even better. You're going to need a mat or some kind of surface to put your t-shirt down on. You're going to need a lint roller with which to clean to prep the shirt. You're going to need some parchment paper or like a Teflon sheet in order to protect the heat transfer vinyl and the sublimation when we're heating it. You're going to also need, of course, some white glitter heat transfer vinyl. So today I am using rainbow white HTV from Caesar, but you don't have to use that kind. You can use whatever kind of white glitter HTV you have on hand, but it does have to be white if you want the colors to come out really true from the sublimation. All right, so I think that covers everything you're going to need. Just so you know, I use Hippo ink in my Epson Eco-Tank printer, and I also use a sub 120G paper, and it seems to work really, really well. Okay, so let's get going on this fun project and head on over to Cricut Design Space. Okay, so I am here in a new canvas in Cricut Design Space, and the first thing we need to do is upload the design we're using. So I'm going to go over to Upload on the lower left toolbar. Then I'm going to go to Upload Image, and then I'm going to click Browse. So as I mentioned at the beginning, the design I'm using is available in my resource library. You do have to sign up for that. But it's a free file, and you're going to get several versions of the file when you download it. It'll be a zipped folder, and you'll need to unzip it. Remember where you unzipped it to, and then look for the SVG version of the file and click Open. And it will come in looking like that, which is exactly correct. And then you can change the name over here on the right if you want to, and enter tags that might help you find it, if that's something you are in the habit of doing. I'm going to just skip that and click Upload in the lower right. Comes in as the most recent upload on the left, so I'm just going to click on it to select it. You know it's selected when a green box shows up around it, so that's good to go. And I'm going to go to the lower right and click Add to Canvas. Okay, it's going to come in like so, and the entire thing is grouped together. So the first thing we need to do is ungroup it. So go to the top of the Layers panel and click the first icon, which, as you can see when you roll over, it changes to ungroup. So just click that and it will ungroup. Now, these are actually 2 big groups of layers. We don't need the one, at least I don't need the one with the blue on top. I'm going to use the one with the yellow on top. So I'm going to just turn this group off. So it is selected over here, I can tell, because the group has kind of turned sort of a bluish green from the white. So I know I've got the right one. And then I'm just going to click on the eyeball on the group designation at the very top to just hide the entire thing. Okay, so now we have this group to work with. You're going to notice it comes in at a pretty small size, so we're going to want to make this bigger to fit on an adult t-shirt. But we are going to use this as a print and cut image, so we have limitations in terms of Cricut Design Space as to how big you can print something. It's 9.25 by 6.75. So I'm going to change the height to, because of that, to 6.7 up here in the size box. And before you do this, make sure the lock is locked because we do want the width to change proportionally to the height. So just hit enter and you'll see the entire thing gets larger. Now, what if you want to change the color of this? I mean, I did this kind of retro looking color palette, but each one of these is a layer. So if you look over here, this is the winds bunch group, and each one of these is its own layer. And so you can change the colors if you want to do that. And I am going to do that. And I'm just, because I want to, and then also because I want to show you how to do it. So you could ungroup this, but I'm going to just leave it in its group and just select them on the layers panel so I know I got each one correctly. I've got the top winds here. If I go up to the operation box on the top and click on the fill color box, I'm going to go to advanced. Now you can change it by choosing a color here or using the slider here to kind of go into different color families to pick something that's close. Because this is a print and cut, I'm actually going to use a hexadecimal code, which is basically the numeric designation, sort of a universal language for colors. So it can be letters or numbers. And the one I'm using is from my logo. And I'm just going to hit enter. And you'll see it turns to a much lighter yellow. So that is basically how you would go in and change the colors of these if you want to. So now I'm going to change the second layer to another hexadecimal code. And so on and so forth. I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me change all these layers because that would be really boring for you. So I'm going to just really quickly change all the layers to the colors I want, and then we will come right back. Okay, so I've changed the colors to what I want them to be. So now we have a few different things we need to do. I want to make an offset because I want to have a border all the way around this design out of the glitter heat transfer vinyl because I'm putting this on a purple shirt. The dark blue layer at the very back would just blend kind of right into the purple t-shirt without something to separate it from the purple. So that's why I want that border. I also think it's kind of a good idea just because it helps you kind of make up for any mistakes or misalignments. You won't notice it as easily as you would if you're trying to line this up directly on top of something that's exactly the same size. I hope that makes sense. There are also some holes that are cut into this design, and I don't want those. So I want to make a solid layer to fill in the back of this before we do an offset. Because I kind of get I think it's pretty tricky for print and cut to cut holes this small exactly correctly. So that's why I'm just going to get rid of them. So the first thing to make like a solid piece to fill in the background is click and drag to select everything, and then we're going to attach it all together. Then I'm going to duplicate it by clicking on this duplicate button on the top right, drag it over here, and then I'm going to just hit combine and I'm going to weld. I'm going to weld the whole thing together. And you'll see that it kind of turns into this, that it goes with the dark blue color. Now, I don't want it dark blue, but I also don't want all these holes in it, right? So I'm going to take a shape, because you can't use contour with this. You can't like go on down and take out the cut lines because this has been welded. So we need to take a shape and fill in those holes. So I'm going to take an oval and I'm going to kind of drag it. And then I'm going to rotate it. All right, until I get all the holes covered. And then I'm just going to select it and the back layer, and I'm going to weld those together. So go down to combine and then weld. And so that takes care of all the holes that are in that very back layer. All right, and instead of having it be blue, I want it to be white. So I'm going to just change the fill color to white. And then I'm going to just kind of drag this closer to the other design. I'm going to go to Arrange, Send to Back. Then I'm going to click and drag to grab both, and then I'm going to align them center. Okay, and then I'm going to attach all of that together. All right, so our next step is to create the offset. So I've grabbed everything I want to offset. I'm going to go up to the upper toolbar and I'm going to click Offset. You'll see that a line shows up around the design. It defaults to 1/4 inch, and that's really large. So I'm going to change this to 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch, and hit Enter. And you'll see the outline gets smaller, and that's what we want. So I'm going to hit Apply. And it comes in black. Now I don't want it to be black. I'm going to make it white. But I also don't want it to be print then cut. So if you look at the operation box right now, it's saying print then cut. Well, we're going to change that to basic cut. And then we're going to make it white. Now, here's another sort of odd thing. For some reason, this has weird holes in it. So to get rid of those holes, now I'm going to go down to Contour on the bottom of the Layers panel. And if you wanted to hide like just a few of these, you can just click on them to turn them off. But I'm going to hide all contours, so I'm just going to click on the bottom there, close this, and now you'll see it's a solid. And that's what I want. Okay, so the offset is ready to go. Now this piece, which is our print then cut, we need to flatten it. And the reason we have to flatten it is because we need the machine to see this as one layer as opposed to 2 groups of 5 layers. If you don't flatten it, the machine will attempt to cut each word separately. It'll keep it looking like this, but it's going to try to cut the yellow love and then the orange love and then the red love and the light blue, and it's a mess. All right, so you must flatten it before you do print then cut. So I'm going to go to the bottom of the Layers panel. It's selected and click Flatten. Okay, the last thing we need to do before we send this to the machine is we need to flip these. So I'm going to go up to, I've selected the print then cut image. I'm going to go to Flip, and I'm going to flip horizontal. And for the offset, I'm going to do the same. Now you can do this on the mat. You can do a mirror on the mat. I just like to do it here so that I know when it tries to print the image, my printer knows to do it backwards. So that's just me. You do not have to do it that way. You can do it on the mats instead. All right, now let's go up here to the upper right and click Make It. All right, so when you see the image here, you're seeing 2 black boxes. The outside box is the print then cut box that the machine's going to read to know where to cut the image. The inside box is really just the bounding box for the image itself, and that will not cut. So don't worry about that. And then the bottom mat is the white offset that's vinyl. All right, so it looks good. So I'm going to hit Continue. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to print this image. So I'm going to click on Send to Printer. All right, so you're going to get, your printer choices. Add bleed is on by default. I think that's a good idea because add bleed means it's going to add a little tiny border all the way around of like extra ink so that if the cut is off at all, it will be filled in with the bleed of the ink. So I leave that on. That's kind of a personal choice. And then I do want to use my system dialog box, which means like the box for my actual printer. So I'm going to hit Print. And here's my dialog box that shows up. So I want to make sure I've got the right printer. I do. And then I'm going to hit Preferences. Now, depending on the computer you're using and the type of printer you have, you may have to hit something else to get into these like sort of advanced settings, but you probably know what those are. I'm not going to worry about it too much. Now, ideally with the Epson Eco-Tank and the A-Sub paper, I want to change this to Presentation Paper Matte. And then the most important thing is change this quality from standard to high. I have also printed things on just plain paper, but at a high quality, and that works as well. Then you want to make sure that there isn't anything happening that would change the dimensions, say, of the image. Occasionally I have this printer decide, I'm going to go to more options, decide to like shrink it down, like this kind of thing, fit to page, or center it, or zoom to a smaller size. And that really messes things up. So make sure that none of these types of settings are checked. And then you should be good to go. And so I'll hit OK. And then I'll hit print to print it. Okay, so my image is printed, and now I need to set the base material for the machine to cut it. So I'm going to go into Browse All Materials. I'm going to scroll down to Iron On. And under the Iron On section, I'm going to pick Infusible Ink Transfer Sheet. That seems to work really well with the A-sub paper. Honestly, Infusible Ink Transfer Sheets are thicker than that A-sub paper, but this seems to work like a charm, so that's why I always choose this. So that will be my setting for cutting the print and cut image. So I just hit done. I'm not going to come back into Design Space to show you what to do with the heat transfer vinyl in between. So I'm just going to show you right now. We'll go to Mat 2 and pretend we're cutting the glitter heat transfer vinyl. Then what I would do is go to Browse All Materials, go back to the Iron On section. And for that one, I'm going to choose Glitter Iron On. Seems kind of obvious. But because I am not using Cricut Glitter Iron On, I'm instead using Caesar, I'm going to change the pressure to more. That seems to work really well with the Caesar Glitter Heat Transfer Vinyl. Okay, so those are the two material settings you need. And now let's just head on over to the machine and get everything cut out. All right, so I'm going to load the mat. And I'm going to press my flashing Cricut button for it to go. Okay, there we go. Looks pretty good. All right, so I am using Caesar Rainbow White Glitter Heat Transfer Vinyl. And with any heat transfer vinyl, what you want to make sure you do is you put it pretty side down. So that would be this side. And, more matte side up. It's like shiny side down, if nothing else. So it's the carrier sheet side down. All right, let me load the mat. And now I will press the go button. All right, so we're ready to sublimate this. So I've got my glitter offset that I'm going to tack down first, and then we're going to sublimate the Love Wins design onto that. Now I am using a 100% cotton Gildan t-shirt, and I've got my EasyPress 2 warming up over here. I am going to heat the EasyPress 2 to 375, and then I'm going to heat it for 55 seconds when we do the actual sublimation. But first, let's prep sort of the shirt first. So looking at my setup, I have got like a towel under my EasyPress mat, and then I have the shirt. I am going to press the shirt a little for about 5 seconds just to release any moisture that's trapped in there. So I'm going to use my EasyPress that's heating up. It's not heated yet. It's not fully heated yet, but I'm just going to go over the area for about that long. That's about all I need to get any moisture out of the shirt. You want to do that because moisture can interfere with the ability of the heat transfer vinyl to stick to the shirt. Next thing you want to do is you want to take a clean lint roller and clean off any lint that's stuck to the shirt. And I have a fair amount of, I can see some dog hair on there. I don't know if you guys can. Now I've got this laid out so I can sort of see the whole shirt. And I want to get this as close to the center as I can get it. So I've got my glitter here, and I don't know if you can see this, I folded the design in half, kind of lined it up, and then I just pinched the plastic, like the transfer sheet. So I've got a mark for where the center is on both sides. And I'm going to try to make sure that I eyeball this about in the middle. All right, then I've got a Teflon sheet that I'm going to put over it while I heat it. This is just a really quick tack down of the glitter HTV. You can also use like a piece of parchment paper, butcher paper, or whatever you want. All right, so I'm going to just take my EasyPress here, and I'm just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then just take it off. And that should be enough to set, sorry, my cord's getting in the middle, to set the glitter HTV onto the shirt. And this is like a warm or a hot peel, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna let it cool down a little bit because it's pretty hot. Okay, so that's tacked onto the shirt very nicely right now. I am now gonna let this cool completely, because if I were to put the sublimation design on there right now, we might wind up with some ghosting, because heat is what activates the ink to sublimate. So I'm gonna leave this as is for a little bit and let it cool down. And so I'll be back when it's totally cool. Okay, so the glitter has cooled off completely. My EasyPress is ready to go. It is set to 375 for 55 seconds. So now I'm gonna take the design, flip it over, and kind of eyeball the placement to try to get a nice even border all the way around. Okay, I got it basically as even as I think I'm gonna get it. It's not gonna be perfect. But now I'm just taking some heat tape and I'm taping it in place. I'm gonna do a fair amount of tape because I don't want to have any ghosting if I accidentally move it. Okay, so the border is sort of wider, especially at the top and bottom, than it is on the sides, but you know, it is what it is. Okay, my machine is ready and it's yelling at me. Okay, I'm putting my Teflon sheet back over it. And now I'm just going to make sure I've covered the whole thing and just set it down. I'm not putting any pressure on it really, you know, just basically the weight of my hands. Okay, it does look like it's transferred. I can sort of see some of the ink, but again, I'm gonna let this cool completely before I move it because of the ghosting issue. All right, so I'll be back when this is cooled. Okay, it's completely cooled off, so I'm gonna just peel off the tape. Okay, and there we go. It's a little bit weird in the center. I think because I probably should have put more pressure down, but it's really cute. It really is overall. Hopefully you can see it. Okay, try to move it. And then it's really, really, really sparkly. So I think a little more pressure in the center would have had this coming out perfectly, but I mean, it looks really good. And you know, it feels like glitter heat transfer vinyl on the shirt. Now this was, as I mentioned, Caesar glitter HTV, so you know, it has a pretty good hand to it. It's not super, super thick. So look at that, pretty cute. So that is how you can sublimate onto glitter heat transfer vinyl with Cricut and your EasyPress. All right, so I will link to all of the supplies that I used, as well as the design that is in my resource library that you'll have to sign up for, in the video description. If you got something out of the video, I would love it if you would give me a thumbs up, and hey, leave me a comment. What do you want to use this technique for? Are you gonna make a shirt, something else? It'd be fun to hear about projects you have in mind. And consider subscribing to my channel. I do many tutorials on Cricut, scan and cut, silhouette, you name it. And this is part of a sublimation series, so we will have 2 more in the coming weeks to show how to sublimate on dark cotton shirts using different materials. Thanks so much. Have a great day.